Hello and welcome. I am Exelite and this is my channel. Today I'm here with an update to an infamous story about the murder of a 6-year-old boy who had been walking to his school bus. His name, Etan Patz. Just in case everyone is not familiar with this case and its history, I am going to start off by doing the background of this case and what happened to this little boy. And so let's get started, shall we? In the early morning of May 25th, 1979, Etan left his parents' Soho apartment at 113 Prince Street by himself for the first time. He was planning to walk 2 blocks to board a school bus at West Broadway and Prince Street. He was wearing a black Future Flight Captain pilot cap, a blue corduroy jacket, blue jeans, and blue sneakers with fluorescent stripes. He never got on the bus. At school, Eaton's teacher noticed his absence but did not report it to the principal. When Eaton did not return home after school, his mother Julie called the police. At first, detectives considered that the Patzes could be possible suspects, but quickly determined that they had no involvement. An intense search began that evening using nearly 100 police officers and a team of bloodhounds. The search continued for weeks. Neighbors and police canvassed the city and placed missing child posters featuring Eaton's portrait, but this resulted in very few leads. Eaton's father, Stanley, was a professional photographer and had a collection of photographs that he had taken of his son. His photos of Eaton were printed on countless missing child posters, and he was one of the very first children put on the backs of milk cartons. They were also projected on screens in Times Square. There had been a suspect that had said that he had murdered Eaton, but as it turned out, after many, many years, that it actually was not him. But on May 24th, 2012, New York City Police Commissioner Raymond Kelly announced that a man was in custody who had implicated himself in Eaton's disappearance. A law enforcement official identified the man as 51-year-old Pedro Hernandez of Maple Shade, New Jersey, and said that Hernandez had confessed to strangling the child. Hernandez stated in his written confession to police, "I'm sorry, I shook him," misspelling the word choke. According to a 2009 book about the case, after Eaton had $1 and had told his parents that he planned to buy a soda to drink with his lunch. At the time of Eaton's disappearance, Hernandez was an 18-year-old convenience store worker in a neighborhood bodega. Hernandez says that he later threw Eaton's remains into the garbage. A 6-year-old boy. Hernandez was charged with second-degree murder. According to a New York Times report from May 25, 2012, the police at that time had no physical evidence to corroborate his confession. In 2012, Jose Lopez, a man from New Jersey, reached out to investigators because he believed that Hernandez, who was his brother-in-law, was responsible for Eaton's disappearance. Statements by Hernandez's sister, Nina Hernandez, and Thomas Rivera, who was a leader of a charismatic Christian group at St. Anthony of Padua, a Roman Catholic church in Camden, New Jersey, indicated that Hernandez may have publicly confessed in the presence of fellow parishioners in the early 1980s to having murdered Eaton. According to Hernandez's sister, it was a, quote, open family secret that he had confessed in the church. A New York grand jury indicted Hernandez on November 14, 2012 on charges of second-degree murder and first-degree kidnapping. His lawyer has stated that Hernandez was diagnosed with schizotypal personality disorder, which includes hallucinations. The lawyer has also said that Hernandez has a low intelligence IQ of around 70, quote, at the border of intellectual disability. On December 12, 2012, Hernandez pled not guilty to 2 counts of murder, 1 of kidnapping in New York court. On April 13th, Harvey Fishbein, Hernandez's legal aid criminal defense lawyer, filed a motion to dismiss the case, citing that Hernandez's confession in one of the nation's most notorious child disappearances was false, peppered with questionable claims, and made after almost 7 hours of police questioning. The next month, New York Supreme Court Judge Maxwell Wiley ruled that the evidence was legally sufficient to support the charges and that the case could move forward. He also ordered a hearing to determine whether the defendant's statement could be used at trial. A September 14th hearing was conducted to determine whether Hernandez's statements were made before the police had read his Miranda rights to him and whether it was legally admissible. This would be influenced by whether he felt free to leave during the time which he was Mirandized. The hearing also sought to determine whether Hernandez understood the significance of his Miranda rights and was competent to waive them when he did so. This, of course, is significant because it would decide whether any statements made after that point by Hernandez were legally admissible at his trial. The actual truth or falsehood of these statements was not the focus of the hearing, but the question of the statement's truthfulness was to be discussed at a trial which began on January 5, 2015. The case resulted in a mistrial in May 2015 because of a hung jury that was deadlocked 11-1 for conviction. A retrial began on October 19, 2016 in the New York City court with jury deliberations in February of 2017. On February 14, 2017, Hernandez was found guilty of kidnapping and felony murder. Sentencing was scheduled on February 28th, with Hernandez facing 25 years to life in prison. However, Hernandez's attorneys were granted a delay in the order to challenge the verdict, and no new sentence date was set. Then, on April 18, 2017, Hernandez was sentenced to life with a possibility of parole after serving at least 25 years, which is insane. The conviction was unanimously affirmed by the appellate court on March 26th of 2020. But on July 21st, 2025, a New York federal appeals court, Monday, ruled that the former bodega stock clerk convicted in the 1979 kidnapping and murder of 6-year-old Etan Patz should receive a new trial or be released from custody. Pedro Hernandez, who is now 64, was convicted in 2017 of kidnapping and murdering Etan Patz after he confessed to luring the child into a basement as he walked to his bus stop in Soho. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in connection with a case that rocked New York City. The child was among the first placed on milk cartons. So that is the update that came out today. I can only pray that they do a retrial. The fact that this man could be set free. A man who saw a 6-year-old boy walking to his bus stop and sold him a soda so he could drink it with his lunch, should not be roaming the streets. Thank you for coming to my channel. Good night.